increase in all of our costs over the next year because we're doing well. Like, neither of those two things makes any sense. One of the key areas I've seen companies have success is when they actually engage the people that are involved in spending the money in cutting the costs. So start first by asking people what cost areas in our division are not lining up with sustainability of the organization through whatever time frame you feel the turbulence is going to last. If you believe the Bank of Canada, then everything's going to be fine in September. If you believe the banks, then it's going to be fine in January or June, possibly next year. So you really have to decide how long do we need to work through the situation that we're in right now, and then ask people what costs within your area, within your division, are not necessary for the next 6 months. Not for the next foreseeable future, but for the next 3 to 6 months, or whatever your time frame is. What do we think you can cut back in your area that's going to help us get through this next stage? When I've seen organizations do this, the CEOs come back to me and they say, you know what, Mike, what I'm shocked by is they had lower numbers than we were going to suggest. But I know if we suggested them, they were going to hate us for it. But they actually came back and cut costs in areas that we hadn't thought we were able to cut costs in. So the buy-in and the engagement is a lot higher. And that's great, because that's what we're shooting for, is to keep people engaged in a time when, let's face it, people aren't always feeling that great about what's going on in their own company when it has nothing to do possibly with the company. It has to do with an external force being applied against the business. So we talk about revenue as vanity, and we talk about profit as sanity. Then what's cash? I mean, cash is like oxygen to a business, right? Like, it's the air. Without that, it's over. And it's funny because Harvard Business Review did an article in the last couple of months, and it was great. They talk about VPs of Fortune 500 companies needing to learn about cash flow. So as an entrepreneur and a business owner, I read this article and I'm blown away. How do you become the VP of a Fortune 500 company and not understand how cash flow affects your organization? I mean, you know, in a small organization, you learn quite quickly you can't spend profits. It doesn't work that way. Suppliers don't take profit checks. They will take cash, though. So I'm saying, you know, don't ignore profitability, but a company can be profitable and still run out of cash to support its growth. And if your company gets into a stage where it's recovering, so let's say that things start to turn around, and all of a sudden the orders start to pile in, and your company is cash-strapped, and you're in a manufacturing business, and your suppliers are giving you 30-day terms, and your product takes 90 to 120 days to complete from the raw material to the finished goods, you have to float the cash flow in between from when your product's completed into your customer, and you know, if you're giving them 30-day terms, there could be a 6-month lag from when you bought the material. So if you get a huge order from a client coming out of a slump, and you don't have the cash flow to be able to buy the raw material, and you expect that the bank is going to support you through that, the reality is the bank will lend you money when you don't need it. When you do need it, they're not interested in lending it to you. So cash is critical during these times. Summing this up, I mean, first of all, everybody's got to be in sales. You want to cut you want to cut costs, but get support of your teams to do that. And remember that monitoring cash flow tightly, you know, is always important in a growing business. It's very important in a small business, but in a time like this, it's critical even in a large business. And I'm still shocked that Harvard had to point that out to Fortune 500 companies. Let's talk a little bit about marketing. I don't know if you've noticed lately, but magazines have shrank in size, like considerably. And I checked, and I don't think it's because they cut the writing staff back. So since September of 2008, there's been a lot less clutter. Advertising is down, and so if there's less clutter, that means you have a higher probability of reaching your audience. I mean, the thickness of most business publications in the last 6 months is just not there. The reality, the dirty little secret in the magazine business is that ad sales drives editorial content. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't mean to say that the marketers or the advertisers get to drive what's in the content, but they do drive the bulk of content, the amount of editorial that can be placed into a publication. Less pages means less advertising. Less pages, less advertising. There's a better chance that you're actually going to get noticed in a publication. Right now, they're marketing, the traditional marketing mediums are hungry, and they're dropping prices. So this is a really good time to be talking to them about long-term contracts. Right now, they're talking to you about, could you do something in the next issue, or would you do something for the next 3 months? Flip it back at them and say, we'll sign a 2-year contract starting now, but I want to pay half. Like, any salesperson who brings back a 2-year contract to their boss, the boss is going to look at that and go, you know what, I can't do a lot of these, but I'm going to take this one because I've got a guaranteed revenue for the next 2 years out of this client. The cost of sales in the ad world is so high, they don't want to come back and see you and sell you every quarter. They're just afraid to ask for anything larger than a quarter because right now, most marketing budgets have been slashed. So take a chance to stand out right now while everybody else is actually standing down. The fifth thing is really about confronting the brutal facts, but moving forward with healthy optimism anyway. Jim Collins wrote a book called Good to Great, and in it he talks about how high-performing companies are able to be realistic about where they're at right now, at the same time putting together a positive plan to move through to a new situation. So maybe think about this realistic optimism in 3 steps. First of all, we've got to be clear about what the situation is today, because pretending things are going to get better than they are, and that the strength of our brand and reputation are going to carry us through to the next level. I mean, that's ludicrous. That doesn't happen. Once you've got a clarity about where you are, then you've got to explain what the changing conditions mean for the organization, or for the division, or for the area. And then the third thing is share the strategy that's going to move the company forward in the right direction. But then break it down, if you're a manager and you're a leader, break it down into what each individual can do differently over the next bit. So when you're sharing the way out, the global way out, it's hard for me to be able to relate to that. But if you tell me it's almost like with them, what's in it for me. If you can tell me how I can relate to this strategy, then I've got something I can do. Because right now all I'm doing is worrying. I'd love to put that time and energy into something productive. So tell me what it is you'd like me to be focused on, and I'll go do that. I think a great example actually comes out of the States recently with President Obama. So he used the phrase, yes, we can, to rally a nation and get everyone focused on what they can do as individuals instead of being overwhelmed by the fear of the current economic situation. But the important part is the part where he talked about what can be done by individuals in their community to make a difference. And he actually shared examples of what people are doing in different communities as helping to turn the tide and protect the welfare and the well-being of the citizens of these various towns and cities throughout the U.S. And I think actually the quote that I love the best about confronting the brutal facts and moving forward with healthy optimism anyway, it's actually a quote from, I think it's 70 or 80 years ago now, from Henry Ford. And the quote is, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. So give people a chance to be optimistic by sharing with them the way that you're going to help move, that they can help move through the situation you're in into this new, healthy, optimistic view for the future. Let's talk a little bit about strategic planning. So, I mean, let's face it, after the strategic plan is done, nobody looks at the binder, right? I mean, the goal of the strategic plan isn't to create more binders. I'm pretty sure that there's a conspiracy going on right now, and the shelf manufacturers have actually teamed up with the concept of with the binder manufacturers and the whole concept of putting binders on shelves, because the two of them realize they're actually in like a parasitic symbiotic relationship. So I think the key here is actually to think about the goal of strategic planning as creating accountabilities that lead to results in a measurable way. So who's going to do it, what's it going to cause, and how are we going to measure it? Those are the 3 things that really matter in strategic planning. So leaders should be able to take their strategic plan, whether it be for 3 to 5 years, whether it be for your division, the whole company, your area of responsibility, and encompass the organizational and divisional values, goals, and actions for the next 3 to 5 years, the next year, the next quarter, including the relevant financial data and key performance indicators, and actually put it all into one document. I'm showing you one version that we use called the one-page focus plan, and I mean, hopefully you'll be able to see it. It might be a little bit fuzzy on your screen. I'm happy to send a sample out. So what I'll do is I'll attach the template that you see on the screen here. It's actually a Word document, so you can ditch everything that's in there that I've inputted as a sample. And feel free to use that within your organization. So I'll make sure that's included on the follow-up email. So now that you've got your strategic plan, one of the key things with strategic planning is actually to keep your plan dynamic. The most successful companies that I've worked with over the last 10 years are the ones that review, evaluate, and revise their strategic plans on a quarterly basis. The difficulty is that as you're going along quarter through quarter, the plan itself, if it's not adapted to the market, the changes in the economy, the industry, changes in people in the company, or something that a direct competitor is doing, if you don't revise it, you've created this static document, which made sense when you created it, but people are looking at it going, well, half of this fits, and half of it doesn't, and so I've got this great spot on my shelf left over. Maybe I can slide the binder up there with the rest of them. So what you want to do is be bringing the planning session back around. Now, I'm not suggesting you need to do a 3-day, off-site retreat every quarter to be able to bring people together, but 4 hours, 5 hours in the meeting room, in the office, sit down, and just go through the accountabilities and the actions and the results that you're having against the plan and say, is this plan still relevant? Because if it's not, pretending that it is, while everybody else is ignoring it, it's just not really a solution for strategic planning. Why bother investing the time and money in an annual session if we're going to not keep that plan relevant throughout the year? Candor and authenticity. So, being candid and speaking authentically about the situation and the reality of the situation that's going on in the company is important. This is not the time for wordsmithing. It's time to speak in plain language, language that everyone can relate to. I think Jack Welch actually, in his book Winning, in chapter 2, he speaks about candor, and actually he uses the phrase the biggest little dirty secret in business is what he calls it. He felt that the biggest turning point in the success of GE happened when they brought all the executives together and agreed to put true candor into place in the organization. What he did is he brought in 150 of the core VPs throughout GE. He put them all in a room for 3 days, locked the door, and the topic was candor. Let's get it all out on the table, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. I want to hear it from you guys. And